What's going on, everybody? Welcome back. Last video we talked about fire capture, setting it up and capturing planets and all that. For this video we're going to go over AutoStakkert, but first we need to go back into fire capture real quick because there's something I want to show you. What I didn't realize when I made the last video is that you can actually capture the color data on the planets that it gives you. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now, and then we can take that data and take it into AutoStakkert. If you want to use these settings and capture Jupiter as well on the dummy cam, then you can follow along as we do AutoStakkert, Registax, and so on. The settings I have are maximum resolution, gain at 200, exposure at 6 millisecond, luminance, AVI, 60-second limit. If you click on the debayer and go to the options, I have nearest neighbor, red and green Bayer pattern. These are all the different Bayer pattern options depending on what camera you have. For this dummy cam, I have red, green, and then temporarily disabled the Bayer. What that means is that you can preview the planet in color, and then whenever you hit record, it'll go to monochrome. So we'll go ahead and hit record. 2, 1, done. Alright, so now we have our data recorded. We'll open it up in AutoStakkert. First things first, looking over here, this slider right here will show you your video in its current order. So you can see frame number 1 out of 8183. So these are all the individual frames out of the video that we just captured. We'll start over here, image stabilization, surface or planet. So you would click surface if you have a close-up of the sun or the moon where it takes up the entire frame. For anything else, you'll select planet. Dynamic background, so if you watched the last video and you saw the Mars recording where it was jumping all over the place, if you captured the planet and the planet wasn't centered in the recording, then the dynamic background will compensate for that and it will crop off the excess of each frame after it centers the planet. So since we use the dummy capture, it's centered, so that's not going to matter. The Laplace quality estimator, so basically the higher the noise you have, the higher this number will be. If you have a bigger telescope and super clear skies, everything was just perfect, then and you didn't have that much noise, then you could pick a smaller number. For this noisy old data, we'll go ahead and go with 7 and then click analyze. So now what analyze is going to do is it's going to select, it's going to look at all the frames and it's going to place them in order from what it thinks is best to worst. And it'll spit out a graph, and I'll show you how to analyze that graph. Alright, if you look at the window over here, you can see it's not frame number 1 anymore, it's frame number 5190. And if we scroll, you'll see that the frames are all out of order, but now it's going from quality from 100 to 0. So best frame to worst frame. And then that's also reflected on the graph here. So your quality graph, here's 100%, 0%, and then this is the percentage of frames through. So like this is 25% of the frames, see, 25. So there's 2 ways you can go about this. Number 1 would be to use this slider and you will visually look at the planet, and wherever you start to lose detail or it starts to get noisy, anything where it starts to look not usable, just stop there. And wherever you stop, you'll see this number where it says top blank percent. So in this case, it'll be 75%. So you would come over here to your frame percentage to stack and put anything from 75 or less. That's one way to do it. The other way to do it is to use the graph. The general rule of thumb would be to use anything that's greater than 50% quality. Quality goes here, 0 to 100 on your y-axis, and X is the number of frames. So if we look on the graph where your frames intersect the 50% line, somewhere in here, 56%. You could do 55, you could do 50, you could do 60. The cool thing is that you have options. Let's say you wanted to do 50, but you also want to do 40, or you also want to do 55. Well, instead of having to run several times through the program, then you could put in different numbers in here. So let's just say we wanted to do 40, 30, and just for the hell of it, 75. So now when you stack, it will give you 4 different folders, all of which have a different percentage of frames stacked, and you can run all of those through Registax and then pick out your best one. But just for this tutorial, we're going to go ahead and do 50. Normalized stack. So what that means is once the final image is stacked, it will automatically put it at whatever percentage of brightness on the histogram you want. For a single stack, it's not really that necessary. Where it really comes in handy is when you take a sequence of images, either for stacking in WinJupos or for doing an animation. Because when you do an animation, you don't want your brightness to change and pulsate. You want it to be one brightness so you have a smooth rotation. So we'll leave it unchecked for this instance. Sharpened will give you another file in your folder. So in this case, we'll have a 50% folder. And if we had sharpened, we would have the raw stacked picture, and we have another picture that has a blend of the raw and a over sharpened picture together. That very rarely ever comes in handy, so I always leave it unchecked. RGB align, if you have a color cam, obviously click RGB align. If you have mono, don't worry about it. Saving folders, leave that checked. Drizzle, so what drizzle does is it's going to upscale your image. We know that the image is 640 by 480, and if we were to drizzle, it would increase the image by 1.5 times. That doesn't give you any better resolution, it just makes the picture bigger. For this case, we'll leave it off. So now you're pretty much done with this window. We'll go over here to do the align points. Now there's two ways to do the align points. You can manually draw, which I do not suggest whatsoever, and then you have the automatic align points. Let me preface this by saying that what I'm telling you isn't, don't take it as Bible. I highly encourage you to experiment with all kind of different settings, all kind of different align points, sizes, placement, everything. Because what works best for me won't work best for you, might not work best for the next person. So that being said, I'll give you my general consensus of what works best for me. The align points, the number of align points will depend on the planet's apparent diameter, and that changes in relation to where it is in its orbit. So Jupiter opposition might have the same number of align points as it does early or late in the season, but they might be twice as big because Jupiter's apparent diameter changes so drastically. For the automatic align point sizes, you have default settings. You also have settings you can change by clicking the arrows here. So let's just try 104. All right, that gives me 19 align points. So when it comes to the align points, one thing you want to be sure of is that you don't have too much of the black selected. The reason being is because you have to remember that you're shooting a three-dimensional object. So there's not going to be that much detail on the outside. For instance, you're shooting a three-dimensional object. All the detail is in this spot here. Why would I align anything over here when all the detail is concentrated right here in the middle? Even as it curves off to the edge, you can't see what's on this side. Even though you know it's there, there's nothing really to align here. But that only gives us 19. That's not enough. So let's lower it a little bit. So now we have 28 align points. That's pretty good. Minimum brightness. What minimum brightness will do is it will select more or less brighter or darker pixels depending on what you select. So if I lower this number, it's going to select darker and darker pixels. See, now we're at 33, 39, and you can see we're starting to get to the edge, all that black on the outside that we don't want. Where that comes in real handy is when you're doing close-ups of the moon and you have a light gradient, whether it be on the Terminator or from the different craters, and you have Mare and all that stuff. It might select only a third of the frame, and so if you lower that number, it'll select darker and darker parts and give you more align points. So we'll raise that back up to 75. We have our 88 size. Place the grid, gives us 28 align points, all neatly tucked within the planet. So now you can see that all of our align points are here, but we're missing the bottom part of the planet because it's darker for some reason. You can click to add your own manual align point, and if it doesn't work out or you don't like it, you can always right click and take it out. That's it. You got all your align points and everything. We'll stack it. And that's it. That's AutoStakkert. If we look in Registax, the picture should be open. There it is. You can see what we started from up until this point here. And then next video, we'll be going over all the fun stuff. Well, everybody, I hope you all enjoyed that video. To everybody who's watched them so far, I hope you all have gained a little bit of extra knowledge from it. I just wanted to give back to the astro community that has become such an important part of my life and who I am as a person. And if you have any questions that I want you to hesitate to ask, or send me a direct message on Facebook or Instagram or whatever. The only two favors I'll ever ask is that you pass on the information that you have learned, and if you do decide that you would like to upgrade telescopes or get a telescope or get you an astronomy webcam, I have an affiliate link for OPT. If you use that to make your purchase, it won't cost you anything extra, but I'll get a little small commission that maybe I can buy, new telescope stuff with, or maybe even buy McDonald's. I like chicken nuggets too. But yeah, no, that would just help me out a little bit. And if you want to, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, share it on Facebook, share it on Instagram, tell your mom or your dad, show your kids, whatever. I just want you to learn and experiment. If you have the passion for something like this and you're not excited or happy with the way your pictures are turning out, then, we'll work together and we'll figure out what the problem is and try to get it handled. If I don't know, I'll ask somebody who knows and I'll share it back with you. I have no shame in asking people for help. But anyway, stay tuned for the next video where we go over Registax, and I'll see y'all later.